Hi, good evening. Good evening, Lamai.
Good evening, sir.
Okay. So today what we are going to do is actually we I will do some kind of a recap of your complex group consolidation, right? So basically, I will going to do kind of a revision, right? And I know you have covered up almost all the parts which is relating to the complex group calculations. So uh, as a kind of a revision, as I mentioned before, I will do some sort of adjustments and how you need to work with the complex group calculation that I will cover up today. Right. So I have shared the uh, PDF document with you. Um, and okay, so let's start the revision for the complex group consolidation, right? Uh, So as you all know, when it comes to consolidation, the basic consolidation, so consolidation can be divided into, like, we can divide it into two parts. Not wrong with my pen. When it comes to the consolidation, right, consolidation, so we can divide this consolidation into two, right? So we have completed the basic consolidation, and today what we are going to do is the group consolidation, complex group consolidation, right? So when it comes to the basic consolidation, because I'm doing this as a revision, so if you can remember, when it comes to the basic consolidation, we discuss about principles of consolidation, right? The principles of consolidation according to the SLFRS 3 and the 10, right? Principles of consolidation, and we will discuss about the how to prepare the consolidation statement of financial position, and according to the SLFRS 10 again, right, right. And we have discussed about the investment in associate. We have discussed the investment in associate according to the LKAS 28, right? LKS 28. And also we are discussing about the joint arrangement according to the SLFRS 11, right? SLFRS 11. And also for this, we have discussed the consolidation statement of comprehensive income as well. And as a fifth one, we have discussed about the disclosures related to the consolidation in the SLFRS, right? So this part we have done in second year, right? Second year, right? So now we are in the complex group calculation. So when it comes to complex group calculation, right? So we have to do the complex group transaction, which is relating to the sub-subsidiary, right? Sub-subsidiary, right? That means you have a subsidiary and also you have a sub-subsidiary. Or we can say it's a fellow subsidiary. We call another name for the sub-subsidiary, it's a fellow subsidiary, right? So the complex group calculation. So when in your syllabus, we are only talking about the sub-subsidiary calculation, right? We are only talking about the sub-subsidiary calculation. But when it's come to the complex group, right? When it's come to the chartered accountants strategic level, right? So you have to do the changes in group structure. Changes in group structure you have to do, right? And uh, consolidation statement of cash flow, right? Cash flow you have to do. Cash flow. You have to console the cash flow, right? And the foreign subsidiary. If there is a foreign subsidiary, how can we record it as a subsidiary, as a consolidation? How we are doing the consolidation procedure when there is a foreign subsidiary, and also the reorganization, right? Reorganize how we are reorganize the uh, companies, right? So those aspects we are not talking in this syllabus, right? But they are these things also coming under the complex group calculation, right? Complex group calculation. So in your level, we are only discussing about the subsidiary or the fellow subsidiary calculation, right? So this is what we are going to do today, right? This is what we are going to do today. Actually, I'm going to recap the things you have already learned, right? Okay. Um, I'm taking another. I'm taking the whiteboard here. Right. When it comes to the complex group, when it comes to the complex group, right? Complex group. When it comes to the complex group, so there are two types of complex group. There are two methods which we can do the complex group. What are they? Anyone knows? Anyone knows? Anyone knows? When it comes to the complex group, there are two types. Yes. What are the two types of complex groups? Yes. Basically, don't write now. Don't write in the on the whiteboard. Right. Right. Vertical groups. Vertical groups. Vertical groups. And also, so what? Mixed groups. Mixed groups. Or we can say D-shaped group. D-shaped group. Right. D-shaped. Right. So first, let's look at what you mean by a vertical group. Right? What do you mean by a vertical group? When it comes to the vertical group, basically vertical group, let's say like this. This is the parent, right? This is the subsidiary, and this is another subsidiary. So here, your ownership will be 80% and 70%, right? So this is, we call it as vertical group, right? This we call it as vertical group. It should be either vertical, it should be either horizontal. The thing is, you need to have the linear relationship, right? You need to have a linear relationship, right? Make a vertical වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්, horizontal විදිහට වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. එකම දේ තමයි මේක linear relationship එකක් වෙනවා. So that we call it as vertical groups, right? That we call it as vertical groups. Either we can write this for this side also. We can write as a vertical side as well, right? That is also correct, right? I can write like this, right? Only thing is that there is a linear relationship, right? If there's a linear relationship, we call it as a vertical group, right? We call it as a vertical group, right? Then, uh, then the D-shaped group. So what do you mean by a D-shaped group? So here you don't have the parent have only a indirect control, indirect control, indirect control, indirect control, right? But when it comes to the D-shaped group or mixed group, the parent also having an indirect control and also he is having a direct control, right? So let's see, P is a parent, subsidiary is there, right? Subsidiary is there. So you own 80% of this and you own only 30% of this, right? P. And P directly own 45% of this, right? 45% of this, right? So this we call it as D-shaped group, right? This we call it as D-shaped group. Why we are calling it is as D-shaped group? Because you can see the letter D here, right? So and also this is the another name for this is mixed group, right? Mixed group. Here you are having the indirect control as well as you are having the direct control. Right? Indirect control එකකුත් තියෙනවා, direct control එකකුත් තියෙනවා. මෙතනදී තියෙන indirect control එක විතරයි. Right? P S ගෙන් තමයි T ව control කරන්නේ. මේකෙදි P S ගෙනුත් control කරනවා T ව, ඒ වගේම directly control කරනවා. Right? So in the mixed group there will be a direct and indirect control. So that you need to remember. In the mixed group, you have both direct and indirect control. But when it comes to the vertical group, you are only having the indirect control. That is very important, right? To remember, right? That is very important to remember, right? So when it's come to the sorry, when it's come to the mixed groups and the vertical group, right? Vertical group. So how we are deciding whether this company is my subsidiary or the sub-subsidiary? So basically we know if the parent own more than 50% of S, that means this will become your subsidiary, right? This will become your subsidiary, right? That is obvious, no? Right? So then you, as a parent, when you're looking at the T, is it subsidiary of yourself or not? How you are deciding? How you decide? How you are deciding? So here S owns 70% of T, right? So that means P control the S and S control the T. From by using the S, you can control the T, right? So that means this will become your subsidiary, right? Always remember when you are doing the complex group calculation, as I mentioned in the basic consolidation as well, you think you are the parent, you are the P, right? You are the parent, right? So when it's come to yourself, so T is your subsidiary, right? Because you can control the S, and by using the S, you can control the T, right? So then the T will become your subsidiary, right? Your subsidiary. And also in this case, you can control the S, and also you can control the T using the S, and also you have in the direct control of T. So then this also become your subsidiary, right? Subsidiary, right? Your subsidiary, right? Right. So this is how you need to decide whether it is a subsidiary, right? So I will tell you one easy method. මම කියන්නම් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට easy method එකක් කොහොමද මේ subsidiary අඳුරගන්නේ කියලා. subsidiary දැන් subsidiary අඳුරගන්න දන්නවනේ 50% more than 50% නම් ඒක subsidiary. හැබැයි දැන් තව එකක් එද්දි ඒක subsidiary ද associate ද කියලා අඳුරගන්න ටිකක් අමාරුයි. Right? Right. ඒක අමාරුයි. So what we are doing? So normally people get misled when it's coming to the when it's coming to the complex group. They are deciding the subsidiary basis using the effective control, effective holding, right? ගොඩක් කට්ටිය වරද්ද ගන්න තැනක් තමයි මේ complex group calculation එකේදී මේ T කියන නැත්නම් තුන්වෙනි පාර්ශ්වය අපි subsidiary කියලා තීරණය කරනවා effective holding වලින්, right? මොකද්ද මේ effective holding කියන්නේ? මම EH කියලා use කරොත් effective holding, right? අපි effective holding දැන් මම හැම වෙලේම මම නෙමෙයි P, මමනේ parent, right? ඒතර මම parent ගේ perspective එකෙන් බලන්නේ, right? ඒතර මම parent ගේ perspective එකෙන් බැලුවාම මම බලනවා parent කොච්චරක් T ගේ අයිතිද? parent කොච්චරක් T ගේ අයිතිද? So that is, we call it as effective holding. So how we are calculating that? 80% into 70%, right? 80% multiplied by 70%. That means 56% is owned by P of T. That is effective holding. That is effective holding, right? So based on this, you can't decide the subsidiary, or you can decide whether that company T is your subsidiary or the associate, right? ඔයාට කියන්න බෑ මේ 56ක් තියෙනවා කියලා 150ට වඩා වැඩියෙන් දින හින්දා මේක ඔයාගේ subsidiary කියලා, right? So if you are deciding based on the effective holding, you are deciding this company is your subsidiary, it is wrong, right? It is wrong, right? For example, let's say this company is having, for example, right? So let's erase this. Let's erase this. And the P holding 70% of S and S holding 60% of T, right? Then when it's come to the effective holding, 70% multiplied by 60%, right? So then the effective holding coming like 42%, right? So according to your gathered knowledge, right, how you are deciding the subsidiary? You are deciding normally you are deciding the subsidiary in the basic consolidation. If the parent own more than 50% of the subsidiary, then that company will become your subsidiary. If the parent is owning more than 50% of a particular company, that particular company will become a subsidiary of that parent, right? So in here, it is less than 50%. It is less than 50%. And if you are deciding by looking at the effective holding, this is not your subsidiary, it is wrong. Right? ඔයා කිව්වොත් මේ කම්පැනි subsidiary එකක් නෙමෙයි කියලා ඒක වැරදි. එතකොට හැම වෙලේම මතක තියාගන්න effective holding එකකින් decide කරන්න බෑ ඔයාගේ third company එක subsidiary එකක්ද නැද්ද කියන එක. Right? subsidiary එකක්ද නැද්ද කියන එක. Right? effective holding එකෙන් decide කරන්න බෑ. එහෙනම් කොහොමද අපි decide කරන්නේ? එහෙනම් කොහොමද අපි decide කරන්නේ? හැම වෙලේම බලන්න ඕනේ immediate ownership එක. right? හැම වෙලේම ඔයගොල්ලෝ ලේසියෙම decide කරන්න පුළුවන් මේ කම්පැනි මගේ subsidiary එකක්ද associate එකක්ද කියලා immediate ownership එක දිහා බලලා. immediate ownership එක දිහා බලලා. මොකද immediate ownership එක කියන්නේ? S own 60% of T. X own 60% of T. ඒ කියන්නේ S ට පුළුවන් T ව control කරන්න. right? What we have learned, if you are having a controlling power, then that company will become your subsidiary, right? S can control T because it's holds more than 60%, right? So this is, we call it as immediate control. Immediate control. So what you need to look at? You need to look at the immediate control, right? You need to look at the immediate control. In here also, when it comes to the immediate control, 30% plus 45%, that is 75%. That is more than 50%. That means the T will become your subsidiary, right? ඔය හැම වෙලේම subsidiary decide කරන්න ගන්න පුළුවන් easiest method එක තමයි. මේක rational method එක නෙවෙයි. හැබැයි ඔයාලට නිකන් හිතලා easiest method එක තමයි immediate ownership එක බලනවා. immediate ownership එක බලනවා. ඔයාගේ immediate ownership එක අනුව ඔයාට ඒ company එක control කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් then we will decide that company is our subsidiary, right? We will consider it as our subsidiary, right? So that is how we are deciding the subsidiary, not looking at the effective holding, right? So that is the first thing you need to know, right? Is that clear? Any questions? Is that clear? Others? මම පොඩි උදාහරණයකින් කිව්වොත් එහෙම
Yes, sir.
උදාහරණයකින් තවදුරටත් කිව්වොත් එහෙම හිතන්න parent කියන්නේ ඔයාලගේ ගෙදර අම්මා, right? මේ S කියන්නේ තාත්තා. මේ ඉන්නේ ඔයා, right? මේ ඉන්නේ ඔයා, right? එතකොට අම්මට පුළුවන් තාත්තව control කරන්න, හරි? තාත්තට පුළුවන් ඔයාව control කරන්න. එතකොට අම්මා මොකද කරන්නේ? ඔයාව control කරන්න පුළුවන් අම්මට තාත්තට කියලා ඔයාව control කරන්න පුළුවන් අම්මට, right? So that is also subsidiary. If you are having the controlling power, then that company will become your subsidiary. So to that, you need to look at the immediate ownership, not the effective holding, right? Don't get it wrong, right? Immediate ownership එක බලන්න ඕනේ, effective holding එක නෙමෙයි, right? I hope it's clear. Yes? Any questions? No, right? Clear? All clear? Yes? Clear or not? Only one set clear. Yes. Others? Am I clear then?
Yes, sir.
Right. 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 So then I will erase these things. Use this, right? Someone is asking a question. See. Immediate ownership එක ගන්න විදිය ආයෙ කියන්න ඕනේ. පුතා immediate ownership එක කියන්නේ දැන් අපි ගත්තොත් එහෙම company P, right? S, right? 80%, right? දැන් අපි දන්නවා මේක 80% more than 80% කියන්නේ directly අපි දන්නවා basic consolidation මේක තියෙන්නේ P එක companies දෙකක් විතරයි තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට මේ company 80% ownership එකක් තියෙනවා කියන්නේ අපිට directlyම කියන්න පුළුවන් මේක subsidiary එකක් කියලා. අපි හිතමු මේක 70% කියලා, right? ඊට පස්සේ ඊළඟ go on with my pen, I think. Right. Contract. Let's keep it. Right. මේ තියෙන parent, right? ඊට පස්සේ තියෙනවා subsidiary. අපි කියමු S කියලා. මේ company 70% ownership එකක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට අපි දන්නවා මේක subsidiary කියලා basically, right? එතකොට අපි ඊළඟට ගන්නවා T කියලා company එකක්, right? S ඒකේ 60%ක් අයිතිය තියෙනවා, right? එතකොට අපි effective ownership effective holding එක ගත්තොත් 70 වැඩි කිරීම 60 42යි තමයි අපි effective ownership එකේ. right? එතකොට එහෙම බැලුවොත් එහෙම more than 50% ownership එකක් නැහැ parent. right? more than 50% ownership එකක් නැහැ parent. එතකොට අපි කියනවා අපිට ඒ අනුව decide කරොත් අපි හිතන්නේ මේ T associate කියලා. T කියන company associate කියලා. ඒ නිසා මම කිව්වේ immediate ownership එක ගන්න කියලා. immediate ownership එක කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? මේ T කියන company අපි decide කරන්න යන company immediate ownership එක ළඟම තියෙන ownership එක. බැලුවොත් T කියන company ළඟ තියෙන ownership එක S එක්ක 60%යි. ඒ කියන්නේ S ට 60% කන්ට්‍රෝල් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ කියන්නේ T ඔයාගේ parent company එකේ subsidiary එක. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි ගත්තොත් P කියන්නේ මම කිව්වා වගේ අම්මා නම් S කියන්නේ තාත්තා නම් T කියන්නේ ඔයා නම් අම්මට පුළුවන් තාත්තලා ඔයාව control කරන්න. right? Right. So that is the immediate control. Right. Is that clear? Okay. Cool. So that is the first thing you need to know. Right. That is the first thing you need to know. So let's moving on to the document I have shared with you. If you have the document. Right. So the complex group, as we discussed, the complex group we can classify into the two categories, two headings, vertical groups and the mixed group. So first of all, I'm discussing about the vertical groups. A vertical group arises where the subsidiary of the parent entity holds shares in a further entity such as control is achieved. The parent entity therefore control both the subsidiary entity and its subsidiary, often refers to as subsidiary. we call it as its subsidiary or the fellow subsidiary that we have learned, right? So let's look at two scenarios. So I will draw these two scenarios here, right? So two scenarios are not there, right? Scenario one, right? Scenario one, right? So this is the scenario one. H is there. It is a parent, and 90% is held by the, let's say, S, and another 80% is held by, let's say, T, right? T, right? Let's say T. Then scenario two, right? Scenario two, H, 90% held, S is there, and 60% of, right? 60% of T, right? 60% of T, right? So as a first thing, when it's come to the complex group calculation, what we need to do is we need to identify the whether you have the subsidiary or whether you have an associate. So that is what I'm discussing previous as well, right? අපි මුලින්ම complex group calculation එකට යන්න කලින් මුලින්ම අපි දැනගන්න ඕන අපිට තියෙන්නේ subsidiary එකක්ද associate එකක්ද. So how we deciding that? By using the immediate ownership, right? By using the immediate ownership, by using the immediate ownership. So this is 70%, right? This is 70%. As I discussed earlier, when it's come to the effective holding, right? Effective holding of S, right? Effective holding of S, directly we can get 90% is the effective holding, and when it's come to the NCI, it is 10. Right? Then H එකට අපි මේ scenario 1 එක ගැන කතා කරන්නේ, right? Scenario 1 එකේ effective holding එක 90යි, NCI එක 10යි directly අපිට කියන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට company T එකේ, right, effective holding එක 90 multiplied by 80, that means 72, right? NCI is 38%, right? NCI is 38%, right? 38%, right? And when it's come to scenario 2, right? When it's come to scenario 2, effective holding S, we can directly get 70%, and NCI 30%, right? And when it's come to the T, right, 70 multiplied by 60, it is 42%, and your NCI will be 38%. So this is what we need to do for at the beginning of the calculation, right? We need to calculate the effective control, and we need to get the NCI percentage, right? So if you are looking at the, as I mentioned before, if you are only looking at the effective holding, right, it shows less than 50%. So then if you are deciding this as a associate, then your calculation got wrong, right? So to identify whether it is a subsidiary or the associate, you need to look at the immediate, holding, right? You need to look at the immediate holding. So I have a question. Sorry, it is 58%, sorry, not 38, 58%, right? 48, 42, and the 58%, right? Right, right, right. 48 and the 58% for the NCI, right? So this is how you need to decide the effective holding and the NCI. අපි පළවෙනියෙන්ම කරන්න ඕනේ effective holding එකයි NCI percentage එකයි calculate කරගන්න question එකක් දුන්නාට පස්සේ, right? ඉස්සෙල්ලාම decide කරන්න ඕනේ whether this is a subsidiary or the associate, because if you have got wrong, right? So for the subsidiary, we are applying the SLFRS what? SLFRS 3. For the associate, we will apply in the LKS 28. So there will be a different calculation. So if you are wrongly identifying the third company as an associate, then your whole question will go wrong, right? So therefore, you need to identify, first thing you need to do is you need to identify whether that company is a subsidiary or the associate. Then the second thing what you need to do is you need to calculate the effective holding of those two companies, right? Right. So that is the second step you need to follow, right? Right. Is that clear? Is that clear? Is that clear? Yes. Up to this point, I have discussed two steps. First step is you need to identify the subsidiary or the associate. The second step is you need to calculate the effective holding and the NCI percentage, right? Right. Then when you are approaching the question, right, as I mentioned before, you need to work with the control. Control means you need to decide whether that company is your associate company or the subsidiary company. Then the percentage. Percentage means effective holding. Effective holding. And next one is the acquisition date, right? Acquisition date. Acquisition date. So these three things you need to look at when you are approaching to a complex group question, right? First thing is you need to look at whether that company is associate or subsidiary, right? And the effective holding. Third one is acquisition date. Why the acquisition date is very important? Why the acquisition date is very important? Because we are calculating goodwill on that acquisition date. So therefore, the acquisition date is very important, right? The acquisition date is very much important, right? Very much important, right? Okay. So these three things මේ තුන මතක තියාගන්න මේ විදිහට තමයි ගානක් අප්‍රෝච් කරන්න ඕන. මුලින්ම බලන්න ඕනේ මේ තුන්වෙනි කම්පැනි නැත්නම් මේ සබ් සබ්සිඩරි කම්පැනි එක නැත්නම් මේ තුන්වෙනි කම්පැනි එක not sub subsidiary ඒක sub subsidiary එකක්ද associate එකක්ද කියලා. ඒක අපි decide කරන්නේ immediate control එකකින්. right? ඒක අපි decide කරන්නේ immediate control. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි බලනවා parent ට පුළුවන්ද indirectly control කරන්න අනිත් කම්පැනි එක. right? So if he can control it, then it will become his subsidiary, right? Otherwise, it will become his associate. අපි ඒක පළවෙනිම බලන්න ඕනේ ඒක subsidiary company and the associate company, right? Then second thing, we need to calculate the effective holding, right? Effective holding. Here, when we are having a direct control, then the effective control is the same thing, right? But when you are having an indirect control, right, effective holding will be changed, right? So it will be changed, right? So you have to calculate the effective holding. Then the third one you need to look at is the acquisition date, because the acquisition date, based on the acquisition date, we are calculating the goodwill, right? We are calculating the goodwill. These three things you need to look at, right? Okay. So here the requirement is comment on the control effective consolidation percentage and the acquisition date, right? So I will draw the question here, right? So I'm having the H, right? I'm having the H, and I'm having the S, and I'm having the T, right? For the H, I'm having 80%, which is acquired. The acquisition date is 31st December, let's say 2020, acquisition date 2020, and 80%, the acquisition date will be 31st December 2021, right? 2021, right? 2021, right? So what you need to comment is whether this company T is your subsidiary, whether you are having the control, right? Whether you are having a control or not, and the effective control and the acquisition date we are using, right? Acquisition date we are using, right? Acquisition date we are using, right? Yes. Tell me the control, whether they have the control. H have the control over T. Definitely H have control over S. That is there's no issue. H S ගැන control එකක් තියෙනවා කියලා අපි දන්නවා. 90% control එකක් තියෙනවා. Right? Whether the T has a control, H has a control on T, yes or no? Yes. How we are deciding? We need to look at the immediate ownership. Immediate ownership, right? Immediate ownership. S own 80% of T. That means S can control the T. H can control the S. Through S, H can control the T. Then this company will become a sub-subsidiary, right? Sub-subsidiary, right? And effective control percentages. So when it's come to the T, effective control, effective holding will become 90 multiplied by 80. How much? 90 multiplied by 80, it is 72, I think, right? And the NCI, 38. Sorry, 28, right? 28, right? Right. And the acquisition date. So now there's a problem regarding the acquisition date, right? Acquisition date. This company is acquired in 2020, December 31st, but this company is acquired in 2021, December 31st. That means you need to calculate the goodwill for this acquisition on 2020, December 31st. You need to calculate the goodwill for this day, for this company, this consolidation thing. And for this consolidation, or from the S to T, you need to calculate the goodwill from the acquisition date of 31st December 2021. Right? So based on the acquisition date only, you need to calculate the goodwill. Right? You need to calculate the goodwill. Right? You need to calculate the goodwill. Right? Is that clear? Is that clear? Yes. Right. So the three things when we are approaching the question, we have to look at. The first thing is we need to decide whether that company is a subsidiary of the associate, and the effective holding. We have differentiated the effective holding and the acquisition date, right? And the acquisition date, right? Right. And the second one also, I'm not going to do the second thing, right? Could you please explain again about the acquisition date part? Acquisition date කියන පුතා අපි acquire කරපු දවසට තමයි goodwill එක calculate කරන්නේ. එතකොට HS කියන මේ තියෙන මේ relationship එකේ HS කියන relationship එක ඇවිත් වෙලා තියෙන 2020 දෙසැම්බර් 31ට. එදාට මේ HS කියන එකේ goodwill එක calculate කරන්න ඕනේ. HS කියන combination එකේ business combination එකේ. එතකොට ST කියන business combination එක ඇති වෙලා තියෙන්නේ 2021 12:31. ඒ කියන්නේ ST කියන business combination එක ඇති වුණා කියන්නේ මේ සම්පූර්ණ group එකේ combination එක ඇති වෙලා තියෙන 2021 12:31. එතකොට මේකට අදාළව goodwill එක calculate කරන්න ඕන 2021 දෙසැම්බර් 31. 2021 දෙසැම්බර් 31. right? අපි හිතමු උදාහරණයක් විදියට මේක මේ විදියට වෙනවා. මේක 2021 වෙනවා. මේක 2020 වෙනවා. right? මේක 2021 වෙනවා. මේක 2020 වෙනවා. එහෙම වුණොත් අපි කවද්ද goodwill එක calculate කරන්න ඕන? නිකන් හිතලා කියන්න. Then H තමයි මම, right? I'm the parent, right? I'm the parent. So when I am having a direct control, so I'm using the different dates, right? So the question is, right? I'm repeating the question again. So the previous I said that this is 2020 and this is 2001, right? The acquisition date. Right. This business combination happened in 2021 and this business combination happened in 2020. Right. So let's change the dates. Right. So I will omit this one and I will tell this combination happened in 2020 and this combination happened in 2021. Right. Right. So then how we are going to calculate the goodwill? At which date we are going to calculate the goodwill? Yes, very good, very correct. Yes, you need to get the 2021 December 31st. That is the effective date of the group, right? So this group become effective in 2021, December 31st. So therefore, for both the companies, you need to calculate the goodwill on that date. Right? දැන් මේ combination එකේදී මේක කලින් ඇති වෙලා තියෙනවා. Right? අපි කලින් කතා කරේ 2020 නේ මේක ඇති වුණේ. එතකොට මේක already ඇති වෙලා තියෙනවා. direct ownership එක ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. හැබැයි මේ කතාවේදී direct ownership එක ආවිල්ලා තියෙන පස්සේ. ඒ කියන්නේ parent ownership එක ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන පස්සේ. එතකොට අපේ group එක effective වෙන දවස තමයි අපි goodwill calculation එක ගන්නෙ මේ companies දෙකටම. Right? බැරි වෙලා හරි මේ direct ownership එක පස්සේ ආවොත්. Right? direct ownership එක පස්සේ ආවොත් ඒ direct ownership එක එන දවස පස්සේ આવුත් හරි direct ownership එක පස්සේ දවසක આવොත් ඒ එන පස්සේ දවස තමයි අපි goodwill calculation එකට ගන්නේ මේ companies දෙකේම. මොකද මගේ company effective වෙන්නේ group එක effective වෙන්නේ ඒ දවසේ නිසා. Right? ඒ දවසේ නිසා. Right? Is that clear? That is why the acquisition date is very important. Right? So if you got wrong from that point, the whole question will got wrong. Right? Right? Is that clear? Any questions? Yes, about the acquisition date. Right. Very good. Okay. So, so forget about the vertical groups. Let's discuss about something about the complex. Sorry, something about the D-shaped group. Right. So when it comes to D-shaped group, how we are deciding the effective control? Let's say I'm having the P, right? Right. I'm having the S, and I'm having the T, right? And I'm having the 80% of this and 40% of this. Directly I'm getting the 20%. 20%. Right. In here also, what we need to look at. So here, when we're looking at the immediate control, 40% plus 20%. That means 60%. 60%. That means this will become your subsidiary, right? There will be a control, right? Right. S ගෙන් අපිට පුළුවන් මේ T 40% control කරන්න. ඒ වගේම P ට directly පුළුවන් indirectly 140ක් control කරනවා, directly 120ක් control කරනවා. එතකොට අපි immediate ownership එක බලුවොත් 160ක් පුළුවන් control කරන්න T ව P ට. Right? So therefore T will become your subsidiary, right? T will become your subsidiary, right? So that is a one scenario we can work with, right? So I'm talking about the D-shaped group, right? So then let's say another example. So this example is actually a very difficult one. Actually, it is not tested in your examination, but for your knowledge, I will explain this. Right. Let's say I'm having the company P, right, and S. I'm having the company T, and I'm having the company Z. There are four companies. In your level, we are not checking the four companies, but when it comes to practical scenarios, this can be happen, right? 70% is owned by the parents, own 70% of P, S, and 40% of T, and 20% of Z, right? And S directly on, let's say 45% of Z, right? 45% of Z, and also parent directly on 30% of T, right? 30% of T, right? Then make a balloon right? So what we need to decide? We need to decide the control of entity, right? So first of all, S, company S, whether it is a subsidiary or associate, this one, subsidiary or associate, this one, that is directly subsidiary, yes, subsidiary, right? Subsidiary. Then the second one, T, is it a subsidiary or associate? Is it a subsidiary or associate? So what we need to look at? We need to look at the direct ownership, right? Immediate ownership, right? 40% and 30%. That means 70%. That means this also our subsidiary, right? Then the Z. So we need to look at the immediate ownership, 45% plus 20%. That means 65%. And this also become your subsidiary, right? So we are not telling that this is subsidiary and this is subsidiary. No, this is also subsidiary, right? Right, right. So T and Z are subsidiary of P, right? By using the immediate ownership, right? By using the immediate ownership. That is the first thing we can do, right? Then how we are deciding the effective control, effective holding. How we are deciding that? Effective holding. Let's look at the effective holding of Z. That is the most difficult part now. Effective holding of Z. How we are calculating effective holding of Z, right? The first part we can directly get, right? Effective holding 70% multiplied by 40% multiplied by 20%. That is the first part, right? Right. That is the first part. You will be getting, I think, 0.056 or something, right? Right. I will get in this side 0.056, right? And the next part, this is the first part, right? I will using another color, right? This is the first part, right? So the next part, what is the next part? 30%, right? 30% and 20%. 30% multiplied by 20%, right? 30% multiplied by 20%. It is, I think, 0.06, right? Right. So that is the second part, right? And the next part, 70% and 45%. 70% plus multiplied by 45%, right? It's also something related to 3.15 or something, right? So your effective holding is coming like in 41% or something, right? So that is how you are calculating the effective holding, right? Make a very හිතන්න එපා මේවා exam එකට එන්නේ නැහැ, right? But when it comes to practical scenarios, you have to calculate those type of things, right? Practically ඔයගොල්ලෝ ගියාට පස්සේ මෙහෙම calculate කරන්න වෙනවා. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට companies තුනකින් ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ exam එකේ companies තුනකින් නවතිනවා, right? මම මේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ නිකන් knowledge එකට කිව්වේ, right? So this is how you will be calculating the effective holding of company Z, right? Company Z, right? Okay, right. Okay, now we have come to the calculation part. We are having the idea. So first thing what we need to do is we need to decide whether that company is a subsidiary company or the associate. Next, we need to calculate the effective holding percentages. Then we need to decide the acquisition dates. That is the three things you need to do first, right? You need to do first, right? So let's read this two paragraphs and get some understanding what it says. So before moving to the indirect holding adjustment, right? So there is something called golden rule, right? You need to remember the golden rule when it comes to the complex group calculation. I will take some space here, right? So the golden rule is I will take the whiteboard, right? Rather than this whiteboard will be more effective, right? So this is we call it as golden rule of complex group calculation. Golden rule, what we need to remember, right? For example, let's say I'm having a company P, right? I'm having a company S, I'm having a company T, right? So P on 90% of this and S on 40% of this and X on let's say 80% of this, right? Sorry, T on 80% of X, right? 90, 40, 80, right? 90, 40, 80, right? So when you're looking at this, right? When you're looking at this, right? So what we need to look at, we need to look at the immediate ownership. Here, this company will become your subsidiary, right? This company will become your subsidiary. And when it comes to this one, this company will become your associate, right? This company will become your associate because the immediate ownership is less than 50%, right? So then the golden rule is, right, after the associate, if your connected company will become associate, after that associate, if there is any kind of a business combination is there, we are not consider it to the group structure. It's not considered to the group structure, right? I will repeat it again. So within this group structure, if you are having an associate at the middle, right, from that point onwards, if there is any kind of a business combination happen, that is not taken to the group structure. That is right. The මෙතනදී 40% ownership එකක් තියෙන නිසා T ඔයාගේ associate එකක් වෙලා තියෙනවා, right? Not a subsidiary, right? එතකොට T ගෙන් පස්සේ T ට ownership එකක් තියෙනවා 80% ZD. හැබැයි ඒක අපි consider කරන්නේ නැහැ group structure එකට. Right? අපි ඒක අපේ group එක විදිහට consider කරන්නේ නැහැ because there's a golden rule that if there is an associate at the middle of your group structure, from that point onwards, we are not considering the other business combination for the group structure, right? Right. You got my point? You got my point? Yes? You got my point? Yes or no? Right. අපේ මේ group structure එක මැද, right? Group structure එක මැද බැරි වෙලා හරි associate relationship එක මැද තිබ්බොත් ඒ associate relationship එකෙන් පස්සේ තියෙන එක business combination එකක්වත් අපි group structure එකට ගන්නෙ නැහැ. Right? දැන් මෙතනදී T ඔයාගේ associate එක වෙලා parent ගේ associate එකක් වෙලා T මොකද immediate ownership එක less than 50%. So then T will become your associate. So after the associate, there will be 80% ownership for the X. So that business combination we are not taking up to this group structure. We are stopped from here. We are stopped from here. We are not go beyond this point. Right? Is that clear? Is that clear? Yes, clear? Lama, is it clear then? Yes. Tell me, is that clear? Shakir?
Clear, sir.
Others? So when is then let's see, this is the vertical group now. Let's see the D-shaped group. So in the D-shaped group, let's say this is P and this is S, right? This is on 60%, right? It's on only 30%, 30%. So that is A, right? And A on another 70% of, sorry, this is 30% now. This 30%, right? X, right? And P on another 10%, right? Right, 10%. So when it comes to this group structure, you can see this is a subsidiary and this will become your associate, right? So this will become your associate. From this point onwards, we are not considering this company to our group structure, right? So we ignore the relationship. We ignore the relationship, right? We ignore the relationship from here because within the group structure, at the middle of the group structure, if the company will become an associate or joint control or the joint arrangement, from that point onwards, we are not considering any other business combination to the group structure, right? Right. So that is the golden rule of complex group calculation, right? That is the golden rule of complex group calculation, right? Is that clear? Is that clear? Guys, Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. Yes. No, P, S, and A. Yeah, A is the associate. No, P and S is console. Yes, correct. P and S is console, and A is your associate. You need to take the profit from associate. The one who asked, it means only P and S console. Yes, that is correct. P and S only console, and associate we take it as a profit from associate to the consolidation accounts. Right. Okay. So then the next one is so we are basically discussing about the first we are discussing about the vertical groups, right? Then we can moving on to the D shapes, right? So when it's come to the vertical group, right? Vertical group, we have learned a word called indirect control, right? We have learned a word called indirect control. That means we are having an indirect control about we have the indirect control of the third company, right? Right. As I mentioned before, mother have control over father, father have control over you, right? So that is the vertical group. That means you are having a that you have a indirect control. That you have a indirect control, right? So when it's coming to the indirect control, right? Indirect control, you need when you are doing a consolidation, when you are doing a consolidation, you need to do a indirect adjustment, right? So you need to do a indirect adjustment, right? You need to do a indirect adjustment. For example, let's say P is my parent company. Let's say I'm having the S, right? And I'm having the T, right? I'm having the T, right? So P on 80% and S on 60%, right? Right. And let's say P investing 100 million on S and S investing 50 million on, sorry for the technical issues, huh? Some technical issues may arise. 50 million. P 180ක් ගන්න රුපියල් මිලියන ලක්ෂයක් රුපියල් මිලියන ලක්ෂයක් ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරනවා. S 60% ගන්න T ගේ මිලියන 50ක් ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරනවා. Right? මිලියන 50 ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරනවා. Right? So how we are calculating the goodwill normally? So when we are writing it, writing a goodwill equation, so goodwill equation, how we are calculating the goodwill? Purchase consideration plus NCI minus fair value of net asset. Right. So that is the equation, right? When the cost of control account, what we are doing, purchase consideration and NCI in the debit hand side and the credit hand side, you are having the fair value of net asset, the same thing, right? So when it's come to the parent, the P and S combination, so we can directly get the purchase consideration as 100, right? 100, right? Right. That is okay, right? So when it's come to this business combination, that means ST combination, right? If you take in the 50 million as our purchase consideration, is it right or wrong? For this business combination, when you're calculating the goodwill for the S and T, we are taking the 50 million as our purchase consideration, right? Is it correct or wrong? 50 million. I'm taking as a purchase consideration. Is that correct or wrong? Yes, others? මම ආයෙ කියන්නම් PS 180ක් ගන්න 100 මිලියන් යූස් කරනවා. ST ගේ 160ක් ගන්න 50ක් යූස් කරනවා. මිලියන 50ක් යූස් කරනවා. අපි දන්නවා goodwill calculation කරන්නේ purchase consideration එකයි NCI එකතු කරලා ඒකෙන් fair value net asset අඩු කරනවා. right? එතකොට අපි මේ relationship එකේදී අපිට directly ගන්න පුළුවන්. right? අපි ඉගෙනගෙන තියෙනවා basic consolidation වලදී PS එතකොට 100 මිලියන්ම අපිට purchase consideration විදිහට ගන්න පුළුවන්. හැබැයි මේ රිලේෂන්ෂිප් එකේදී parent ගේ perspective එකකින් අපි බැලුවාම මේ 50 මිලියන් ගන්න පුළුවන්. අපි හැම වෙලේම බලන parent ගේ perspective එකකින්. right? එතකොට parent මේ T ට invest කරපු 50 මිලියන්ම ගන්න පුළුවන්. yes? ගන්න බෑ. It is wrong. So we can't take 50 million. Then how much we have to take? Then how much we have to take? Just tell me. In this point also people got wrong, right? ගොඩක් ළමයි මෙතනින්ද වරද්ද ගන්නවා. right? මෙතනින්ද වරද්ද ගන්නවා. ගොඩක් ළමයි බලනවා, right? මෙතන තියෙන්නේ immediate ownership එක බලනවා 60යි 40යි. right? එතකොට ඔයා හිතනවා NCA ගේ value එක 40යි කියලා. right? NCA ගේ value එක 40යි කියලා. එතකොට ඔයා බලනවා 50% එකෙන් 160ක් තමයි මම ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ මම ගන්න purchase consideration එක විදිහට 30 million. That is wrong. That is wrong. That is wrong. That is wrong. Why? You need to look at other side because you are the parent here, right? Why we are not taking 50 million here? Even though we have purchased 80%, we take this 100%, 100 million. But here, I'm not taking the 50 million. Why? Because I am having the indirect ownership, right? I am having the indirect ownership. So when you're looking at S, right? So this 50 million actually owned by S. May 50 million S के साली नहीं. S කියන company साली तो मैं 50 million, right? मैं 50 million S කියන company के साली. එතකොට මේ S කියන company එකේ සල්ලි තමයි මේ T කියන company එකට invest කරලා තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට මේ 50,000න් නැත්නම් මිලියන 50න් 180ක් කාටද අයිති? 180ක් අයිති parent. right? ඉතුරු 120 තමයි NCAට අයිති. right? තේරුණාද? එතකොට purchase consideration එක විදිහට ගන්න ඕනේ මෙන්න මේ 50න් 180. ඒ කියන්නේ purchase consideration එක මේ business combination එකේ goodwill calculate කරද්දී අපි ගන්න ඕනේ 40 million. 40 million. right? 40 million. right? මෙතන තමයි ගොඩක් කට්ටිය වරද්ද ගන්න. right? ගොඩක් කට්ටිය වරද්ද ගන්න. මම ආයෙ කියන්නම් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට. right? දැන් මේ business combination එකේදී හරිද? මේ 100 goodwill calculation එකට purchase consideration එක විදියට make business combination එකේදී 100 million ගන්න එක අපි ඕකේ අපි දන්නවා basic consolidation වලින්දී අපි ගන්න කෙලින්ම 100 million invest කරන ගාන. හැබැයි අපිට ප්‍රශ්නේ එන්නේ අපි හැම වෙලේම මේ ඉන්නේ අපි හරි මේ ඉන්නේ parent. right? අපි දැන් බලනවා S කියන කම්පැනිය මිලියන 50ක් ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරලා T කියන කම්පැනිය අරන් තියෙනවා. right? එතකොට මම හදන්නේ මගේ කම්පැනියේ goodwill එක calculate කරන්න. මගේ කම්පැනියේ financial statement ඇතුළට දාන්න ඕන goodwill එක calculate කරන්න. එතකොට එහෙම goodwill එක calculate කරන්න යද්දී මේ 50 million ගන්න එක වැරදි. මොකද මට මේ 50 millionම අයිති නෑ. මේ S කියන කම්පැනියට තමයි මේ 50 millionම අයිති. right? මේ S කියන කම්පැනියට තමයි මේ 50 millionම අයිති. හැබැයි මට අයිති මේ 50 million එකෙන් 180. ඒ කියන්නේ 40 million තමයි මට අයිති. ඉතුරු 120 ඒ කියන්නේ 10 million අයිති NCAට. right? 10 million අයිති NCAට. එතකොට මගේ purchase consideration විදියට goodwill calculate කරද්දී ගන්න ඕනේ මම 40 million. right? 40 million. right? immediate percentage එක ගන්නෙ නැහැ කොයි වෙලාවෙවත්. ඒක ගත්තොත් වැරදි. මොකද immediate percentage එක ගන්නවා කියන්නේ ඔයා හැම වෙලේම හිතන්නේ S ගැන කියලා. ඔයා දැන් හදන්නේ S ගේ financial statement නෙවෙයිනේ. ඔයා හදන්නේ P ගේ financial statement. S ගේ financial statement ගන්නවා නම් immediate percentage එක ගන්න එක okay. right? Immediate ownership rate එක ගන්න එක okay. But here what you are going to do? You are going to make the financial statement of company P or the parent company. right? So therefore you need to go other side. right? So the 40 million is the purchase consideration here. right? Is that clear? මෙතන තමයි ගොඩක් කට්ටිය වරද්ද ගන්න. right? එක තැනක් තමයි අර acquisition date එක, අනිත් තැන තමයි effective holding එක, අනිත් තැන තමයි මෙතන purchase consideration එක decide කරද්දී වරද්ද ගන්න. right? Is that clear? Yes? Others? One who asked to describe it again. So ආයෙ කියලා දෙන්න කියප එක නම් තේරුණාද? Yes? තේරුණාද නැද්ද? නැත්නම් මම ආයෙ කියන්නම්. මොකද මේක වරද්ද ගත්තොත් ගානම වැරදිනවා. ලකුණු 40ම නැති වෙනවා. right. තේරුණාද නැද්ද? yes or no? ළමයි මට ෆීඩ්බැක් එක දෙන්න නැත්නම් මට ඉස්සරහට යන්න බෑනේ. ඔයගොල්ලෝ කියන්න තේරුණාද නැද්ද කියලා.
Clear, sir.
right. දෙන්නෙක් කියනවා no කියලා. right. මම ආයෙ කියන්නම්. right. මේ last time right අහගන්න. right. මම මේක ක්ලියර් කරලා මම ආයෙ කියන්නම් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට. තමයි ගන්න ඕනේ. right. මට තියෙනවා company P, company S, company T. right. මට මේකෙන් අයිතිය තියෙනවා 80ක් 60ක් right. අයිතිය තියෙනවා. right. ඒතර මම මේකට 100 million ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරනවා. මෙයා 50 million ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරනවා. right. right. 50 million ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරනවා. right. 50 million ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරනවා. right. ඊට පස්සේ දැන් මගේ ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි මම goodwill calculate කරද්දී මම දන්නවා මගේ equation එක purchase consideration plus NCI අඩු කරනවා fair value of net asset. අර අපි cost of control account එක කරන දේම තමයි මේ කරන්නේ. හරි. ඒතකොට දැන් අපිට පළවෙනි ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි අපි දන්නවා goodwill දෙකක් calculate කරන්න ඕන complex group වල. අපි ඉගෙනගෙන තියෙනවා. right. ඒතකොට පළවෙනි goodwill එකට අපිට calculate කරද්දී purchase consideration විදියට 1 million ම use කරන්න පුළුවන්. right. මොකද අපි calculate කරන්නේ මේ parent T company ගේ financial question එකට තමයි මේ goodwill එක calculate කරන්නේ. T කියන company ගේ financial statements වලට තමයි මම මේ goodwill එක calculate කරන්නේ. එතකොට මට direct ownership එක නිසා 100 million ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඊළඟ ගැටලුව තමයි මට මේ 50 million ගන්න පුළුවන්ද මගේ accounts වලට? නෑ, මට මේ 50 million ගන්න බෑ. right. මට මේ 50 million ගන්න බෑ. මොකද මේ 50 million සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම මට අයිති නෑ. මේ 50 million අයිති S ට. එතකොට S ගෙන් 180යි මට අයිති. right. 180යි අයිති. ඒ කියන්නේ 50 million එකෙන් 180යි මට අයිති. එතකොට මට ගන්න පුළුවන් 50 million එකෙන් 180යි. ඒ කියන්නේ මිලියන 40යි මගේ purchase consideration එක විදියට. right. purchase consideration එක විදියට. තේරුණාද? දැන් තේරුණාද? right. right. I think I hope this is clear. right. 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 So let's work on one question is there to get the understanding. right. right. So goodwill in the subsidiary is a calculate indirect holding adjustment you have to do when you are doing the vertical group adjustment. Goodwill in the subsidiary is calculated from the perspective of the ultimate parent company. That is why I'm saying that we are preparing the parent company's financial statements. So therefore, when you are doing the goodwill calculation, you need to think on that perspective of ultimate parent company, right? Perspective of ultimate parent company, right? right. Therefore, the cost of the investment in subsidiary should be parent share of the amount paid in subsidiary, right? So that means you need to calculate the parent amount, right? Which is paid by the subsidiary. You need to calculate the parent amount. Out of that 50 million, only 40 million is actually paid by the parent, right? The NCI share of the cost of the investment in subsidiary must be eliminated from the goodwill calculation. The value of the non-controlling interest in the subsidiary includes the NCI share of the cost of the investment in subsidiary. The NCI share of the cost of investment in the subsidiary must be eliminated from the NCI calculation, right? So let's see how to do this, right? Let's see how to do this. The practical example. Right. Question number 2, indirect holding adjustment. This adjustment is very, very important, right? Very, very important, right? Then complex group කිව්වම basic consolidation තමයි. Only the thing is this indirect holding adjustment, right? The indirect holding adjustment එක තමයි තියෙන ලොකුම ඇඩ්ජස්ට්මන්ට් එක නැත්තම් සාමාන්‍ය බේසික් විදියට තමයි බේසික් කොන්සොලිඩේෂන් ප්‍රොසීඩියර්ස්ම තමයි අපි යූස් කරන්නේ. සබ්සිඩරි කියන්නේ අපිට තව සබ්සිඩරි එකක් ඇඩ් වෙලා විතරයි. line by line adding එකක් විතරයි තියෙන්නේ. Right? Only the adjustment we are requiring is the indirect holding adjustment. Right? Indirect holding adjustment. Right? So let's work on this question. I will take a Excel sheet. Yes. Can you see both the documents? The Excel sheet and the Word document. Yes, right? Right. Right. Let's read the question number 3. On December 31st, 2021, A purchased 90% of the equity shares in B for rupees 150,000 and B purchased 80% of the equity share in C for 100,000. At this date, the fair value of the net assets of B and C were 145,000, 44,000, and 90,000 respectively. The fair value of the non-controlling interest in B and C was 17,000 and 15,000 respectively. Right? So the requirement is calculate the goodwill and the non-controlling interest for the inclusion in the consolidation statement of financial position. So what the requirement is, they have to calculate the goodwill and the non-controlling interest. Goodwill and the non-controlling interest, right? So because I'm not having the proper space, I'm using a line adding system, right? මට හරියට ස්පේස් එකක් නැති හින්දා දැන් මෙතන බෝඩ් එකක් නැහැ නේ. ඒ නිසා මම line by line adding එකක් කරන්නේ, right? ඒ කියන්නේ මම accounts හදන්න නැතුව T accounts හදන්න නැතුව line by line adding එකක් කරන්නේ. ඒක පටල ගන්න එපා. මම explain කරන්නම් හරබර ඔයගොල්ලන්ට මොකක් හරි එනවා. හැබැයි line by line adding එකක් කරත් වැරද්දක් නැහැ. හරිද? ඒ විදිහට කරොත් ඔයාලට අර ලොකු complex group ගානක් આવොත් ලේසියෙන් හදන්න පුළුවන් පටල ගන්නේ නැතුව. right? මම නිකන් කියන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලෝගේ method එකට ඔයගොල්ලෝ හදන්න. right? double entry එකම තමයි මම plus minus වලින් යන්නේ. මොකද මට ඉඩ නැති නිසා. right? right. right. So question number 3. So I will give you 2 to 3 minutes. Let's try to do this. Try to do this question. If you have some kind of idea. Try to get the goodwill. Let's say let's try to get the goodwill for the A first. Yes, very good. Someone has given the answer. Very good. Yes. Yes, very good. Very good, Pratap. Yes. Both the answers are correct. Yes, 23,000 and 15,000. Yes, correct. So I think you got my points. Oh, yes. And say 22,000. Yes. Okay. Good now. Yes, others. Okay. I'll do the question, right? So I'm having the working here. Working one, consolidation working, paste Zoom link, right? So then I will having some.
Video call.
Yes, any question?
Ne?
So this is a question information, right? Right. So first of all, you need to make sure that all the information needs to be documented in your working sheet, right? So your acquisition date would be 31st December 2021, right? To 2025, right? A acquired 90% of B, right? 90% of B, 90% of B, right? So this is 90% of B, right? 90% of B, right? Then when it comes to the next one, B acquired 80% of C, 80% of C, right? So when it's come to the group structure, I think you can see the both documents, right? Both the documents you can see, right? Yep. Okay. Group structure, right? When it comes to group structure, A, B, and C, right? So we know 90%, 80%, right? 90%, 80%, right? So here we need to get the purchase consideration. Purchase consideration is given as 150, right? And for this, purchase consideration is given. PC is purchase consideration, right? I'm using some simple wordings, 100,000, 100,000. So purchase consideration is given rupees high of 150,000 and 100,000, right? So we have recorded all these. And then fair value of net assets, fair value of net assets, right? How much? The fair value of net asset is 144,000 for this combination. And for this one, fair value of net asset is 90,000. Even though this is a small question, right? So if you're following this method, right, it will not mess up your calculation, right? දැන් මේ වගේ කම්ප්ලෙක්ස් ලූප් එකක් කරන්න ගියාම මේක කොහේ හරි ඉලක්කම් හැම තැනම ලියන්න ගියොත් එම හරි ෆෝමැට් එකක් නැතුව ලියන්න ගියොත් එම එක එක තැන්වල ඉලක්කම් අන්තිමට කොහෙද ලියුවේ කියලා දන්නේ නැහැ හොයාගන්නත් බෑ ඔක්කොම මෙස් අප් වෙනවා ෆික්ස් වෙනවා right අර මොංගල් වෙනවා වගේ වෙනවා right ඊට පස්සේ අර නම්බර් එක මේ මොකද්ද මේ නම්බර් එක ඒක මොකද්ද කියලා හොයාගන්න බෑ so that is why I'm following a proper format right right so now I'm having all the information and the NCI also we need to write so NCI 17,000 and the 15,000 right NCI 15,000 Right. Now, all the information in the question I have documented to one page, right? All the informations are there. So now we have to work on the question, right? So I'm using this as a goodwill of uh, company B, right? And the NCI of company B and the goodwill of company C, goodwill of company C. So there is no matter of the acquisition date because the same date both the companies are acquired, right? Both the companies are acquired. So therefore no issue regarding the acquisition date. NCI of company C, right? And group return if the group returns are there. Right. Right. So first I'm going to calculate the goodwill of company B, right? That means the first business combination, this one, right? I'm going to calculate the goodwill of this combination. Purchase consideration, we have taken, right? So purchase consideration is 150,000, right? Then the NCI value, also I have taken 17,000, and the same thing you can appear as 17,000. And fair value of net asset, should be minus, right? That also there, 144,000 is there. Then my goodwill would be, I'm getting the sum of this. Goodwill of company B will become 23,000, right? 23,000, right? So that is done. Then goodwill of company C, right? Company C, that means the indirect holding. When it comes to group structure, you can see A have the indirect holding of C, right? A have the indirect holding of C. So therefore, we need to calculate what? We need to calculate the effective holding. We need to calculate the effective holding and the NCI balance, right? Effective holding and the NCI balance, right? So for company A and B, we know, company B, we know effective holding is 90% and NCI is 10%. Directly we can see, right? But when it comes to the company C, right? So you need to get the effective holding 90 multiplied by 80, right? That means 72%, right? 72% and 38%, right? Sorry, it's 38%, right? 38%, but 28%. Always 38% I'm writing, right? Right. So now effective holding is okay. So now I want to work with the goodwill of company C. The purchase consideration I have taken purchase consideration. Right? It is very difficult to the consolidation accounts in the Excel, right? To teach, it is very difficult to do this, right? Purchase consideration 100. මම කොහොම හරි ඔයගොල්ලන්ට තේරෙන විදිහට මේක කරන්න try කරනවා, right? Excel එකෙන්. හරි අමාරුයි Excel එකේ කරන්න. Now the purchase consideration is 100,000 I have taken, right? 100,000 I have taken, right? And we have learned that, right? Right? මේ 100,000 කවුද ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරලා තියෙන්නේ? P කියන B කම්පැනි තමයි C ගේ ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට මේ B කම්පැනියට තමයි 100,000 අයිති වෙන්නේ. හැබැයි අපි ෆයිනෑන්ෂල් ස්ටේට්මන්ට් හදන්න යන්නේ A කියන කම්පැනි එකේ. right? A කියන කම්පැනි. එතකොට මේ 100,000 වලින් A කියන කම්පැනියට අයිති වෙන්නේ කීයටද? 90%. right? 90%. ඒ කියන්නේ රුපියල් 10,000ක් මේ 100,000 වලින් අපිට purchase consideration එක විදිහට ගන්න වෙන්නේ රුපියල් 90,000. ඒ නිසා රුපියල් 10,000ක් මම අයින් කරනවා indirect adjustment එක විදිහට. Indirect adjustment, right? Indirect adjustment, right? So double entry would be cost of control account credit, and you need to debit it to the NCI account, right? NCI, right? You need to get the NCI balance, right? Indirect adjustment. So this is the most important adjustment when it comes to the vertical group. When it comes to complex group under the vertical group, this is the most important adjustment. Indirect holding adjustment, right? Indirect holding adjustment. Indirect holding adjustment, right? Right. Now the purchase consideration is clear. Now NCI, we can directly get the NCI. It is 15,000, I think. Yeah, it is 15,000. And also fair value of non-controlling interest. Sorry, fair value of not non-controlling, fair value of net asset. You can get it from there, 90,000, right? So then I'm getting the it should be 15,000, right? So the goodwill of uh, company C, it is 15,000, and NCI balance also you need to put this point 15. So now when you sum up the things, right? So your goodwill balance would be 23,000 and 15,000, right? And when it comes to the NCI balances 7,000, 15,000, right? So the final balances to the consolidation statement of financial position, goodwill would be 23,000 plus 15,000, right? 38,000, and the NCI balance would be 7,000 plus 15,000, 22,000. So this is the answer, right? This is the answer, right? So if I am, so this is how you can approach a question, right? Right. Got the questions. So Dahada is not NCIC. නෑ නෑ. 10 අපි indirect holding adjustment එක CNCI එකට නෙවෙයි දාන්නේ. ඒක දාන්න ඕනේ NCIB එකට. ඇයි? ඇයි? අපි ඉගෙන ගත්තා නම් right? ඒක simple thing, right? 100,000 කවුද invest කරන්නේ B. 100,000 invest කරන්නේ B. ඒතර B ගේ ownership එක තියෙන්නේ 180ක් තියෙනවා. 190ක් තියෙනවා මට parent company එකට. 10ක් තියෙනවා පිට කට්ටියකට. right? 10ක් තියෙනවා පිට කට්ටියකට. ඒතර මේ පිට කට්ටියක තියෙන එක අදාළ වෙන්නේ B ගේ NCI එකට. right? ඒ නිසා තමයි මේ B 10 අයින් කරන්නේ මේ B ගේ NCI එකෙන් අයින් කරන්නේ. right? මෙතනින් නෙමෙයි අයින් කරන්නේ. right? මේ NCI එකට අදාළ වෙන්නේ නැහැ මේක. මොකද B නේ ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරන්නේ. right? B නේ ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරන්නේ. ඒතර ඉන්ඩිරෙක්ට් හෝල්ඩින් එකේ ඇඩ්ජස්ට්මන්ට් එකේ NCI එක එන්නේ හැම වෙලේම ඉන්වෙස්ටිං කම්පැනි එකේ. right? NCI එකට තමයි බලන්න. right? right? ඉන්ඩිරෙක්ට් ඇඩ්ජස්ට්මන්ට් වල ඩබල් එන්ට්‍රි එක ආයෙ කියන්නකෝ. ඉන්ඩිරෙක්ට් ඇඩ්ජස්ට්මන්ට් එකේ ඩබල් එන්ට්‍රි එක තමයි පුතේ cost of control account එක නැත්නම් ඔය goodwill calculate කරන්න use කරන්නේ cost of control account එකනේ. cost of control account එක අපිට පුළුවන් credit කරන්න debit කරනවා NCI. ඒ කියන්නේ NCI balance එක අඩු වෙනවා cost of control account එකේ balance එකත් අඩු වෙනවා. නැත්නම් අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන් goodwill එක අපිට පුළුවන් credit කරන්න NCI debit කරන්න. right? 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 All clear? Is this clear? Is this clear? Lamai clear then? Right. So let's moving on to the next question. මේක මේ අර කම්මැලි හින්දා මේ යන්නේ එහෙම එපා. මොකද හොඳ හොඳ සෙල්ලම් තියෙන්නේ තව පස්සට. right? අපි තාම සිම්පල් දේවල් විතරයි කතා කරේ. right? හරි. Yes. Let's look at this question number 4. This is also coming from the vertical group, right? Vertical group. The draft statement of financial position of David, Colin, and John as at 31st December 2021 are as follows, right? So they are having some sort of assets and all liabilities, right? David acquired 75,000 rupees one share in Collins on 1st of January 2021 when the return earnings of the Collins amount to rupees 40,000. At that date, the fair value of the non-controlling interest in Colin was valued at 38,000. Colin acquired 40,000 rupees one share in John's on 30th June 2021 when the retained earnings of the John amounting to rupees 25,000. The retained earnings of John had been rupees 20,000 on the date of David acquisition of Collins on 30th June 2021. The fair value of the non-controlling interest in John, both direct and indirect, based upon effective shareholding was rupees 31,000. Goodwill had suffered no impairment. It is group policy to use the full goodwill method. So the requirement is you need to produce the consolidation statement of financial position. Right? So try to do this question. I will give you, try to calculate at least goodwill of the C and J. Right. So tell me, how much is the goodwill of B, not B, C and J? Yes. To calculate the goodwill. Yes. We'll take the same thing. මම ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ ටයිම් එක දීලා තියෙන්නේ ගාන හදන්න. right මම ප්‍රපෙයාර් වෙනකන් අද ගාන හදන්න. ළමයි අපි 10 වෙනි විතර නිකන් කරාට කමක් නැද්ද? නැත්නම් 9 වමාරේදී නවත්තන්න. D shape group එක කරන්න වෙන්නේ නැහැ එතකොට. මොකද කරන්නේ? right right. Let's look at the question. Right. So first of all, what we need to do, we need to summarize the things which is included in the question for one page, right? So that's you need to do, right? Right. So when it's come to the acquisition information, right? So the date of acquisition, we can call it as DOA, right? Not the Department of Accountancy, date of acquisition, right? So date of acquisition, when it's come to the company A and B, right? Date of acquisition is 2021, not A and B, sorry. It should be DC, right? It should be DC, and it should be CJ. Chandimal Jai Singh, right? CJ Abdul right? CJ, right? So date of acquisition of the first business combination DC is 2021 January 1st, right? Right, acquisition date 2021 January 1st. January 1st, right? And the next one, CJ, Chandimal Jayasinghal's date of acquisition, the second business combination date of acquisition, 30th June 2021, I think, right? So 30th June 2021. 30th June 2021, right? 30th June 2021, right? All right. So let's work on the question. The first of all, we are going to draw up the DC combination, right? DC combination. So it says David acquired 75,000 rupees one share in Collins, right? So when it comes to Collins shares, one share, it is 100, right? So out of this 100, he has purchased 75,000. That means 75% he is acquired, right? 75%, right? 75% is acquired. And when the return earnings, so I will It's very difficult to do the consolidation question using the screen. Where the return earnings of the calling amount rupees 40,000 at that date, the fair value of the non-controlling interest in Collins was valued 38,000, right? So the return earnings, right? So the return earnings balance it's given. So fair value of non-controlling interest. I will make this. So share capital we can directly get. Return earnings it says it is 40,000, right? 40,000 and NCI balance is 38,000, right? Is 38,000, right? So I have recorded all the information within the first, which is explained in the first point, right? Then Colin acquired 40,000 of one share in John, right? So that means when it's coming to the Colin, they have the 50,000 shares. So out of that 50,000, Collins acquired 40,000. That means he acquired 80% of J, right? 80% of J, 80% of J, right? 80% of J, right? 80% of J. So then it also mentioned about the return earnings. So I'm using the NCI down the line. Capital and the return earnings. So return earnings, how much the return earnings? Return earnings, John, amounting 25,000, 25,000, right? The return earnings of John had been 20,000 on the David's acquisition of Collins, right? David acquisition of Collins, right? ඒගොල්ලන්ට return earnings කියලා තියෙනවා acquisition date එකෙත්, ඒ කියන්නේ මේ acquisition date එකෙත් ඒ වගේම David Collins acquire කරපු date එකෙත් return earnings දීලා තියෙනවා, right? Right. ඒ අපිට දීලා තියෙන අපිව mislead කරන්න. අපි ඉගෙන ගත්තා ඇයි අපිට acquisition date එක වැදගත් වෙන්නේ? acquisition date එක වැදගත් වෙන්නේ අපි goodwill calculate කරන්න. right? එතකොට අපි goodwill calculate කරන්නේ අපේ acquisition date එකේ information use කරලා. එතකොට මෙතනදී ඔයගොල්ලන්ට දීලා තියෙනවා acquisition date එකේ information මේ David Collins acquire කරපු date එකේ return earnings, right? ඒ වාලා දීලා තියෙන ඔයගොල්ලෝම mislead කරන්න. Right? So you are not taking this 20,000. It's given for mislead you. Right? If you are taking this 20,000, then your whole calculation will go wrong. Right? Because at the beginning we have learned we need to take the acquisition date to calculate the goodwill. Right? Other than acquisition date, we are not taking any other information to calculate the goodwill. Right? Right. On 30th June 2021, the fair value of the non-controlling interest of John, both direct and indirect, based upon the effective shareholding, 31,000. Right? NCI is 31,000. Right? NCI is 31,000. Goodwill has suffered no impairment. It is group policy to use the full goodwill method. Right? Right. So we have right all the information and the group structure. When it comes to group structure, DC D owned by 75%, 75, and this is 80. When it comes to the effective control, let's say C and J, right? Effective control 75% is the effective control. NCI is to 85%. Right? Directly we can get. When it comes to J, when it comes to the J, 75 multiplied by 80, right? We will be getting 60, and NCI balance would be 40, right? NCI balance would be 40, right? Effective holding also done, right? And the missing part is purchase consideration, right? Purchase consideration, when you are looking at the purchase consideration, it is given in the here, right? Share in subsidiary, D invested 120, C invested 80. That means purchase consideration would be 120,000 for here and 80,000 for here. Right? Purchase consideration එක දීලා තියෙනවා 120 80යි 120 මෙතෙන්ට මේ combination එකට 80 මෙතෙන්ට. Right? So now all the information I have documented in that sheet. Right? Any concerns regarding the information I have documented? මොනවා හරි තැනක් වට මිස් වුණාද? මොනවා හරි ක්ලියර් කරගන්න තැනක් තියෙනවද?
Clear, sir.
Right? Right. So now all the information I have documented in that sheet. Right? Any concerns regarding the information I have documented? මොනවා හරි තැනක් වට මිස් වුණාද? මොනවා හරි ක්ලියර් කරගන්න තැනක් තියෙනවද? Yes. All clear? All clear? And also we can get the share capital here, right? Share capital, right? You can see the C share capital is 100,000. So there is a no change in the acquisition date, 100,000. And the J share capital is 50,000. 50,000. Right. So all done. All the information I have copy and paste to the document, right? Document, right? So now we can work on the question, right? So I'm going to calculate the goodwill of C, NCI of C, and goodwill of J, NCI of company J, right? So goodwill of company C, the direct holding, right? We can directly get the amounts. Purchase consideration 120,000, 120,000, and NCI directly we can get. NCI balance is 38,000, right? And the fair value of non-controlling interest, we can get the share capital and the return earnings. Share capital is this, and the return earning balance is this. 140,000. It should be it needs to be minus, right? 140. Then the goodwill for the company C, 18,000, right? 18,000. Then moving on to the C, I should be placed here. Right? And moving on to the company J, right? Company J, I'm going to calculate the company J goodwill, right? Purchase consideration mentioned there is 80,000, 80,000, right? 80,000, but we need to adjust the indirect holding. Indirect holding, that means out of 80,000, we are only owning 75%. 75%. That means 25% is not owned by ourselves. That means so 25% is out of 80%, 25% means 20,000. 20,000 we need to remove from the purchase consideration, and we need to remove it from the NCI as well, right? So the NCI balance, it is given, right? NCI balance 31,000, right? 31,000, and the fair value of net assets 50,000 plus 25,000, right? So the goodwill of the company J, right? Company J 16,000, and NCI also you need to write here, right? Right, all that. And then the group return earnings, you need to work with the group return earnings, right? When you're looking at the group return earnings, you can see 100,000 is the return earnings. You can directly get the 100,000 here, 100,000, right? So then you need to take the post acquisition profit, as we learned in the basic consolidation, post acquisition profit, right? Post acquisition profit for the company. First of all, we need to get the company C post acquisition profit, right? So it says 40,000 at the acquisition date, right? At the acquisition date, the 40,000 is the group acquisition profit, but when it's coming to the return earnings, it is 60,000 at the reporting date, right? So the difference between the acquisition date and the reporting date, at the acquisition date, it is 40,000. At the reporting date, it is 60,000. 20,000 is the post acquisition profit for the company C, right? Company C. And for the company J, at the acquisition date, it is mentioned as 25,000, right? At the reporting date, it is 30,000. That means 5,000 is the profit, post acquisition profit, right? So how we allocated this post acquisition profit? By using the, you need to remember, by using the effective holding. By using the effective holding. For the company C, we are using 75% and 25%, right? 75% and 25%. Out of 20,000, 75% is allocated to the group return earning. Group return earning, that means 15,000, right? And other 5,000 you need to allocate it to the NCI of group, company C. And company J, so you need to use the effective holding. 60% is allocated to the group return earnings. Group return earnings out of these 5,000, that means 3,000 is allocated to the group return earnings, and you need to allocate 2,000 to the NCI. 2,000 to the NCI, right? 2,000 to the NCI. So when we are getting the final balances, here the goodwill be 80,000, and this should be, you need to get the sum of this one, 23,000 and 16,000. Right. So, right. So then we have done all the adjustment, right? So these are the final balances, right? These are the final balances. We have done all the adjustment. Then we need to prepare the statement of uh, financial position, right? Consolidation statement of financial position. Consolidation statement of financial position, right? So we need to begin with the sundry asset, right? Line by line item adding sundry asset, right? 280 plus 180 plus 130, right? 1, 2, that means I think 590, right? 590. 590. Then you need to take the goodwill. Goodwill means 18,000 plus 18,000 plus 60, right? 18,000 plus 60, that is 34, right? So then you can get the total. It's 224 is the asset side. So then we need to go with the liability side, or the equity and the liability side. Equity, right? Directly we can get the equity 200, right? 200 here. Return earnings, consolidation return earnings. So we can get the consolidation return earnings from this point. We have to divide it by 1,000 because we are working with thousands. So hundreds, thousands, right? Then the NCI is 23 plus 33, right? It should be 56, 56. Right? And the liabilities, line by line adding liabilities, 100 plus 100 plus 50, that is 250. So if you get the total, right? So this is my consolidation statement of financial position, right? Financial position. Right. You can see the question number 4 we have done. Question number 4. Any questions? මම පොඩ්ඩක් පාස් ගියා. මොකද මම හිතුවා ඔයගොල්ලන්ට අන්ඩර්ස්ටෑන්ඩින් එක තියෙනවා කියලා. මොකද අපි කරපු එකම ගැළපිල්ල තමයි ඉන්ඩිරෙක්ට් හෝල්ඩින් ඇඩ්ජස්ට්මන්ට් එක. රයිට්, වෙනස් ගැළපිල්ලකට කරේ. right. ඒක විතරයි කරේ. අනිත්ව සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි ජෙනරලි කරන්නේ අපි post acquisition profit එක අපි basic consolidation වල අපි කරපු දෙයක්. right. ඒකදී අපි කරපු එකම වෙනස තමයි අපි use කරේ effective holding percentage. right. Effective holding percentage. right. Effective holding percentage. right? Clear, right? Yes, clear or not? මේකදී පුතා මම කරපු එකම දේ තමයි මේ effective holding adjustment එක. අනිත් දේවල් ඔක්කොම ඔයගොල්ලෝ කලින් කරලා තියෙනවා. right? post acquisition profit එක කොහොමද ගණනය කරන්නේ? හරි calculate කරන්නේ කොහොමද කියන එක ඔයගොල්ලෝ කලින් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒකෙදි මම use කරපු percentage එක විතරයි වෙනස් වෙන්නේ. මම ඒකෙදි use කරන්නේ effective holding percentage එක. right? allocate කරද්දි. NCI එකයි consolidation return earning එකයි අතර allocate කරද්දි මම effective holding percentage එක විතරයි use කරේ. ඒක විතරයි වෙනස. right? අනික හැමදේම සාමාන්‍ය ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඉගෙන ගත්ත consolidation method එකට තමයි කරේ. right? clearද? ළමයි clearද? yes, clear or not? right. okay, so let's moving on to the next question. It's much tougher. So this kind of a question will come in your examination, right? Next one, next question. It should be question number 5. Should be question number 5. Right. Question number 5. The statement of financial position of three entities at 30th June 2021 were as follows. Right? Grape, wine, and wine. Right? E wine and W wine. Right? Grape purchased 40,000 of the 50,000 of 50. Sorry, 40,000 of the 50,000 rupees one share in wine on 1st of July 2020, when the retained earnings of that entity were rupees 80,000. At that time, wine held 7,500 of the 10,000 rupees one share in wine. These had been purchased on 1st January 2020, when wine's retained earnings were 65,000 on the 1st July 2020. Wine's retained earnings were rupees 67,000. At the 1st of July 2020, the fair value of the non-controlling interest in wine was rupees 27,000, and the W wine 31,500. It is group policy to value the non-controlling interest using the full goodwill method. The equity share capital of the grape, including 20,000 received from the issued 20,000 Class B share on 30th June 2021. These shares entitle the holders to fixed annual dividends. Right? The holders of these B share can also demand the repayment of their capital from 30th June 2024. Included in the liability of the grape are rupees 100,000 proceed from the issue of the loan on 1st of July 2020. There are no annual interest payment, and grape therefore believe that no further accounting entries are required until the repayment date. The loan is repayable on 30th June 2023 and the premium of 100%. The effective rate of interest on the loan is 26%. Right? Prepare the consolidation statement of financial position for the grape group at 30th June 2021. Right? So try to do this. Try to calculate at least the goodwill of the wine and wine, V wine and W wine. Get the answer. Right. Right. So first thing what we need to do, we need to document all the information which is relevant to us to one sheet. Then we can work on the question very easily. Right. Okay. So I will start with the question. Grape purchase 40,000 of 50,000 of rupees one share in wine. That means out of 50,000, Grape purchase 40,000. That means you have purchased 80%, right? 50,000 40,000 ෂෙයා අරන් ෂෙයාස් 50,000ක් තියෙනවා ඒකෙන් 40,000ක් අරන් කියන්නේ 80%ක් ඇක්වයර් කරලා ග්‍රේප් ඇක්වයර් කරලා වයින් ෆ්‍රී වයින් එක 80%, right? In wine on 1st July 2020, the acquisition date is 1st July, right? Acquisition date is 1st July 2021, right? Right, 1st July 2021. When the return earnings of that entity were rupees 80,000. Return earnings here 80,000, right? 80,000. Return earning 80,000. At that time, wine held 7,500 of 10,000 rupees one share in wine, right? එතකොට wine මොකද කරලා තියෙන්නේ? shares 10,000ක් තියෙන තැනින් shares 7,500ක් අරන් තියෙනවා. Right? So that means 7,500, right? That means he own 75% of, we own 75% of W, right? These had been purchased on 1st January 2020, right? So the date of acquisition for the second business combination is when? 1st January 2020. 1st January 2020, right? 1st January 2020. So now you can see the differences between the acquisition date, right? Acquisition date. So what is the acquisition date we are using to calculate the goodwill? Is it 2020 January 1st or 2021 July 1st? Yes, 2020. Sorry, 2021 July 1st, right? It should be 2021 July 1st, right? It should be 2021 July 1st because we have learned we are only taking the date where the group is effective. Actually, when the effective group is created, that date we need to take into the consideration when you are going to calculate the goodwill. So therefore, the effective date would be effective date of the complex group or the group is 2021 July 1st, this date, right? So we take this date, right? It should be 2020, sorry. Right. Anyway, 2020 or 21, 2020, right? Sorry. Right. So then, when the wine's return earnings were 65,000, right? So the wine's return earnings were 65,000 at that time, 65,000, right? On July 1st, 2020, wine's return earnings were rupees 67,000, right? So here, the return earnings given at the acquisition date, but the acquisition date of the wine is 2020 January 1st. Acquisition wine VW acquire කළා තියෙන්නේ 2020 ජනවාරි 1 වෙනිදාට. හැබැයි අපේ group එක effective වෙන්නේ 2020 ජූලයි 1 වෙනිදාට. එතකොට අපේ return earnings දීලා තියෙනවා 2020 ජනවාරි 1 වෙනිදා සහ 2020 ජූලි 1 වෙනිදා දෙකේම return earnings දීලා තියෙනවා. එතකොට අපි ගන්න ඕන මොන return earnings ද? The return earnings where the group structure will become effective, right? The date we need to take to as the effective date for the complex group, we need to take the date where the group is effectively become a group, right? So that date will be the 1st of July 2020. So we need to take not 65,000, we need to take the 67,000, right? 67,000, right? 67,000, right? Negative mark. I have a 67,000 got 65,000 got ඇත්තටම මේ කම්පැනි ඇක්වයර් කරන දවසේ රිටර්න් earnings තමයි 65000. හැබැයි මගේ group එක effective වෙන්නේ ජුලයි 1 වෙනිදා ඉඳන්. ඒ නිසා මම ජුලයි 1 වෙනිදා කියන රිටර්න් earnings තමයි ගත්තේ. Right. 67,000. Right. Right. Then the next paragraph, at the July 1st, 2020, the fair value of the non-controlling interest wine was to 27,000. Right. This is 27,000. And the W is 31,500. 31,500. Right. 31,500. Right. 31,500. Paragraph 3, 4, and 5. These three paragraph I will come back later. Right. I will come back later because it is not actually for the consolidation purpose. Right. It is coming with any other standards which we have discussed. Right. SLFRS 9 and other standards we have discussed. So it is from this point onwards, the consolidation information are ended. Right. So I will look at these paragraphs later when we are discussing the question. Right. So at this moment, I will stop from this point. Right. I will stop from this point. Right. This point, and I will take up these things for the later discussion. Right. When it's coming to the latter part of the discussion. Right. Now all the things are we have recorded. Only the share capital we have recorded. This is 50,000, and it should be 10,000. Now all the information are recorded. Now I want to move to the adjustment working. So working on V, NCI of V, NCI of goodwill of V, NCI of V, goodwill of W, NCI of W, and the group return earnings. Right. So B, the direct control, we can directly get the control. We can directly get the goodwill. Purchase consideration is how much? So that's also there, 110 and 60, right? The purchase consideration, and I can write here. It is 110,000 and 60,000, right? 60,000. It's here, right? 110 and 60,000. I'm taking the 110 here, and the NCI is 27,000. 27,000, and the fair value of non-controlling interest. Fair value of non-controlling interest. Plus 30, right? So the goodwill would be 7,000, right? Goodwill would be 7,000 of company B, right? Then moving on to the goodwill of company W, right? Purchase consideration would be 60,000, right? So out of this 60,000, we need to only take the 75%, right? 75%. That means you need to remove the 25% of this 60,000. That means it should be 12,000, right? So you need to remove the 12,000. And you need to get it to the NCI. So NCI value is given directly 31,500, right? So the same amount you need to here, right? And the fair value of net assets, it also we have get from the information 10,000 plus 67,000, 77,000. So the goodwill would be 2,500, right? 2,500, right? So then when you're moving on to the group return earnings, the group return earnings is how much? 210,000, right? So the post acquisition profit of, let's say, V post acquisition profit of V, return on equity is 110, right? So the post acquisition, the return on equity at the acquisition date is 80. That means post acquisition profit is 30,000. 30,000, right? 30,000. And for the W, return earnings is at the reporting date, it is 70,000. At the acquisition date, it is 67,000, right? මේක තමයි වැදගත්. අපි බැරි වෙලා හරි 65,000 ගත්තොත් මෙතෙන්ට අපි ගන්නේ 5,000, right? අපිට 5,000 ගන්න බෑ. මොකද අපිට 65,000 ගන්න බෑ. අපේ group එක effective වෙන්නේ July 1st ඉඳන්. ඒ නිසා July 1st තියෙන return earnings balance එක තමයි අපි මෙතෙන්ට ගන්න. Right? So therefore 67,000 at the group date, and when it's compared to the reporting date, 70,000 is the return earnings. So the balance is 3,000. Right? Post acquisition profit is 3,000. Right? So when it's coming to the group structure, I have not made the group structure. So this is 80%. This is 75%. Right? So that means effective control of V, we can directly get 80% and 20%. 80% and the 20%. And then this one, you need to multiply the 80% and 75%, 60% and 40%. 60% and 40%. So 30,000 you need to allocate among the NCI of V and the group return earnings, right? Group return earnings. The percentage would be 20 and 80, right? 20 would be, I think, 6,000. This is 24,000. And 3,000 you need to allocate it among the NCIW and the group return earnings by using the effective holding rate 60 and 40, right? 60 and 40. So it should be 1,200 and 1,800, right? So 1,200 here, 1,800 here, right? 1,800 here, right? So I will take some space here, right? So we have completed all the adjustments which is related to the consolidation, right? So then we will moving on to this part which we have actually discussed. The equity share of capital of Grape included rupees 20,000 received from the issue of 20,000 Class B shares on 30th June 2021. These shares entitle the holders to fixed annual dividends, right? මේ කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? මංගාව තියෙන share capital එකෙන්, right? Grape ගේ තියෙන share capital එකෙන්, ඒ කියන්නේ 100,000 වලින්, මේ 100,000 වලින්, out of this 100,000, 20,000 shares වල අමුතු ලක්ෂණ දෙකක් තියෙනවා. right? එකක් තමයි මේකට තියෙනවා fixed dividend, right? Fixed dividend එකක් තියෙනවා, right? And also there will be what? There will be the fixed annual dividend is there, and also B shares can also demand the repayment. So the repayment also can be done. Repayment also can be done. Repayment, right? So that means it's not present the equity characteristics. It's presenting the liability characteristics. So what we need to do, you need to remove this 20,000 from the equity and you need to allocate it to the liability, right? So that adjustment you can make in SOFC here, 100, you need to minus 20 and you need to add it to the liability, right? You need to add it to the liability, right? මේ 100 එක ඇතුලේ 100,000 equity එක ඇතුලේ 20,000 worth of shares තියෙනවා. ඒකේ තියෙන විශේෂ ලක්ෂණ දෙකක්. fixed dividend එක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම dividend ගෙවනවා. සහ repayment possibility එකක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට මේ 20,000 ඇත්තටම equity characteristics පෙන්වුම් කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ නිසා අපි මේක classify කරන්න ඕනේ liability එකක් විදියට. අපි classify කරද්දී liability එකක් විදියට equity එකේ මේ 20,000 අයින් කරලා liability එකක් විදියට මේ 20,000 දානවා. Right? So that is the adjustment. Then next, included in the liability Grape are rupees 100,000 proceed from the issues of loan, right? Grape के liability वाला 150,000, right? මේ 150,000 තියෙනවා. මේ 150,000 වලින් ලක්ෂයක් අදාළ වෙනවා loan එකට. Right? ලක්ෂයක් අදාළ වෙනවා loan එකට. Loan on 1st July 2020. There are no annual interest payment and GRAPE therefore believe that no further accounting entries are required until the repayment date. The loan is repayable on the 30th June 2023. The effective rate of interest on the loan is 26%. Right? එතකොට මේකට මොකද වෙන්නේ? මෙතන loan එකක් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි මේ loan එකට අදාළව කිසිම interest payment එකක් කළා නැහැ. Right? කිසිම interest payment එකක් කළා නැහැ. ඒ නිසා GRAPE ගේ management එක කියනවා අපිට කිසිම accounting entry එකක් ඕනේ නැහැ. මොකද මම interest ගෙවලා නැහැ. Right? So that is wrong. According to the SLFRS 9, what we have learned, according to the SLFRS 9, whether you have paid or not, you need to account for that interest by using the effective interest rate. So therefore, there will be 100,000 loan. So effective interest rate will be 26%. That means you need to record 26,000 interest in your accounts. So the double entry would be your expense account or the consolidation return earnings should be deducted interest. Right? You can use the line item as interest. 26,000 you need to deduct from the consolidation return earnings. Right? And you need to add it back to the liability. Right? You need to add it back to the liability because you didn't pay that 26. Right? So double entry would be the return earnings, sorry, the liability will be credit and it should be debited to the consolidation return earnings. Right? Consolidation return earnings. Right? Right? So that is done. Right? So now we can prepare the consolidation statement of financial position. So let's take the final balances here. So this is 7,000. Right. So I'm taking the final balances here. So then I will working on the SOFE. So SOFE balances you need to get from here. Sundry assets, right? 350 plus 200 plus 120. So I'm taking from this point, right? 350, 200 and 128. So what is the balance? It is 670, right? 670. So the goodwill I can get the goodwill 7 plus 2,500, right? So that means 9,500, I think. Yes. 9,500, 9.5. I'm working with thousands, right? So the total would be this much. And the equity will become 80 because I have deduct 20 from the equity because 20 is showing the liability characteristics. So I'm removing the 20 from the equity, right? And the return earnings, you can get the balance directly. NCI, you need to get the balances 21 and 21 plus 32.7, right? 21 plus 32.7, 53.7, right? And the liability 150 plus 150 plus 100 plus 140, 40, right? So how much the total? How much is the total? 150, 336, right? 330. Yes. So total would be right for this study, right? So we have completed the question number 5. Question number 5. Right. Any questions? Any issues? Any issues? The only thing I have done is the indirect holding adjustment and some of the adjustments which is relating to the SLFRS 9 and the lab, the basically SLFRS 9 adjustments I have done along with the consolidation adjustments. That is the only thing I have done, right? Right. I hope it is clear, right? Right. Shall we stop from this point? Or let's continue with the D shape, right? So I hope you have the understanding about D shape. Let's continue or stop. Hmm? Okay, I will give a example of the D shape. Only thing is the direct control and the indirect control, right? Only difference is that, right? I will do this question and finish off the uh, discussion, right? Question number 7 in the mixed group, right? So I will take another sheet here. So try to do this while I'm creating my page. තමයි මොකද කියන අමාරුද අපි මෙතනින් නවත්තමුද නැත්නම් තව කරන්න ඕනද D shape එක කරන්න මොකද කියන්නේ මටත් අමාරු ඒකයි මොකද අපි මේ ලොකු සිලබස් එක දවසින් කරන්නේ ඔයාලට D shape එක ගැන අන්ඩර්ස්ටෑන්ඩින් එකක් තියෙනවා අපි නවත්තමු D shape එකේ එකම දේ තමයි අපි අර ඉන්ඩිරෙක්ට් ඇඩ්ජස්ට්මන්ට් එකට අමතරව අපේ ඩිරෙක්ට් ඇඩ්ජස්ට්මන්ට් එකක් තියෙනවා එච්චරයි වෙනස් වෙන්නේ මොකද කරන්නේ කරනවද නවත්තනවද yes කට්ටිය ඔක්කොම නිදිද නැත්නම් okay අපි මේකත් කරමු ඒක කම්ප්ලීට් නේ වෙන්නේ හරි right in this case only difference is here we are having the indirect holding as well as direct holding right මේකදී අපිට indirect holding එකක් තියෙනවා direct holding එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒකට මේකට අදාළ adjustment එක විතරයි මේකේ තියෙන වෙනස. right දැන් අපි බලමු මේ question එක right all shares were acquired on 31st December 2018 when the return earnings of S amount to rupees 30,000 and those C amount to rupees 10,000. It is a group accounting policy valuing uncontrollable interest on the proportionate basis. Right? The proportionate basis, we are using the proportionate basis when we are calculating the NCI. ඒ කියන්නේ NCI value එක දීලා නැහැ අපිට calculate කරගන්න කියලා තමයි කියන්නේ proportional basis. අපි ඉගෙන ගත්තා basic calculation, basic consolidation වලදී. basic consolidation වලදී අපි ඉගෙන ගත්තා fair value method එක සහ proportionate method එක. fair value method එක කියන්නේ අපිට already ගානේ දීලා තියෙනවා. proportionate method එකද අපි net asset percentage එක fair value of net asset අරගෙන ඒක percentage එකක් ගන්න ඕනේ NCI එකට. Right? That is what we called as proportionate method. Right? Right. So first of all, the acquisition date, the same acquisition date, 31st December 2018, right? Acquisition date. So there's no change in the acquisition date, right? There's no change in the acquisition date. So the company we are having HS and C, HS and C, right? HS direct control, HS direct control, right? HS direct control. So you can see the direct control of H and S. It is how much? How much? It is 75%, right? It is directly given right here, 75%. But HNS is 75%, right? HNS 75%, right? 75%. And the purchase consideration is directly given 72,000, 72,000, right here, 72,000 is directly given. And fair value of non-controlling, fair value of net asset, share capital is 60,000, right? Share capital is 60,000, right? And also the return earnings, it shows return earnings as 30,000 here, right? 30,000. It's given, right? So NCI, how we are going to calculate? We are using the proportionate of net asset method. That means our net asset value is 90,000. So out of this 90,000, you need to take 25%, 25%. So this is the NCI value, right? 22,500 is the NCI value, right? So that is completed, right? That is completed. So then I will take some space here. Then the next one is we are having the direct and indirect relationship. We are having the direct and indirect relationship, right? For example, let's say H we are having, and we are having the S, and we are having the C, right? So H, we are having the direct ownership of S for C 40%, and we are having the direct ownership of S to C, it is 30%, right? 30%, right? එට 140ක් අයිති C වලින් ඩිරෙක්ට් විදිහට S ට 130ක් අයිති ඩිරෙක්ට් විදිහට C එකේ. ඒතකොට අපි ගත්තොත් එම අපි ඉගෙන ගත්ත ඉමීඩියට් හෝල්ඩින් එක අනුව 30යි 40 එකතු කරාම C අපේ සබ්සිඩරි එකක් වෙනවා. right? C අපේ සබ්සිඩරි එකක් වෙනවා. right? C අපේ සබ්සිඩරි එකක් වෙනවා. right? So then how we are going to calculate the percentage? How we are going to calculate the percentage? How we are going to calculate the percentage? Right? How much is the percentage? Yes. How much is the purchase consideration? So the purchase consideration, first of all, purchase consideration, H, purchase consideration of H, direct ownership is 25,000, right? 25,000, and the S, it is 20,000, right? It is 20,000, right? 25,000. So this is the indirect ownership. Sorry, direct ownership. This is indirect ownership, right? Purchase consideration of, right? And fair value of net asset. Fair value of net asset is given. The share capital is how much? The share capital is 40,000. Right? Share capital is 40,000. The return earnings would be 10,000. It is given here. Right? Return earnings 10,000. Right? 10,000. Right? Now I have completed that also. Then the group structure. Right? So group structure. So when it comes to group structure, right? When it comes to the group structure, when it comes to the group structure, group structure. So we can have the group structure H. We are having the H, and we are having the S. We are having C, right? So H on 75 is on 30. H have the 40. So this is the group structure, right? This is a group structure, right? This is a group structure. So when it comes to the effective holding, how much is the effective holding? When it comes to the two computations, S and T, the two companies, right? Effective holding and the NCI balance, right? Here we can directly get NCI balance and the effective holding 75%, 25%, and 25%. When it comes to C, how we are getting the C, right? You need to multiply. So this is how you are getting the effective holding of C. So tell me, what is the effective holding of C? Tell me. C will effective holding here. How we are calculating? You need to multiply the 75%, so 75% multiply by 30, right? And you need to add 40, right? 40%, right? So this is the calculation, right? So I'm writing that calculation here. 75 multiplied by 30. So you need to open the bracket and close the bracket and plus 40, right? 62.5 is the effective holding. That means 37.5 would be the NCI balance. 37.5 would be the NCI balance, right? 37.5 would be the NCI balance. So this is also percentage, right? This is 62.7 now. 62.5. This is 62.5. I will write this 64.5. It is rounding up, right? Right now it's split, right? 62.5 and 37.5 is the NCI balance, right? So now I'm going to calculate the NCI balance, right? NCI balance out of 50, right? So my fair value of net asset would be 50. So my NCI balance would be how much? 50,000 into 37.5%. 80,750 is the NCI balance, right? Right? 80,750 is the NCI balance. 40,000 50,000 එකතු කරා අපේ effective NCI effective control එක ගන්න එක නම් 37.5 37.5 වැඩි කරා. right? 50,000 37.5 වැඩි කරාම 18.850 is the මේක තමයි NCI balance. right? NCI balance. right? Right. Right. So now all the informations are there. So I'm now going to do the working. Right. I'm going to do the working. Working number, working one. So I'm going to calculate goodwill of S, NCI of S, and goodwill of C, and NCI of C, and the group return. Right. Group return. So when it comes to the purchase consideration of S, it is directly we can obtain, right? 72,000 is a purchase consideration. Then the NCI balance I have computed, right? 22,500, that is also there. And NCI, you need to get the minus balance, 60 plus 30, 90,000, right? So your goodwill would be, sum of this goodwill would be 4,500, right? So NCI balance would be established. Then the next one is, this is the hard part, goodwill for the C, right? So goodwill for the subsidiary in the mixed group, right? How we are going to calculate, right? So here, so I will take a, here when it comes to the purchase consideration, there will be a direct purchase consideration as well as the indirect purchase consideration, right? Indirect, right? The direct one we can directly get, right? Direct one is we can directly get. Direct one is 25,000, as I remember. Yes, 25,000, and the indirect one is 20,000, right? So out of this 20,000, the company contribute, or the parent company contribute how much? 75%. That means 25% you need to remove as the indirect holding adjustment. Right? 25,000 to 25% means you need to remove 5,000 from here. Right? 5,000 from here. Right? 5,000 from here. And the NCI also we have calculated. It is 18,750. 18,750, and the fair value of net asset, it is, and this one, we need to get the minus balance, is 50,000, right? So then we can get the goodwill. It is 8,750, 8,750, right? So the NCI balance also we need to write here, right? So we have completed that. Then the group return earnings. So when it's come to the S and C, right? S and C, right? S and C. So S, the group return earnings would be 95,000. Yes, 95,000. Right, this is 95,000, and the post acquisition profit. So 30,000 of the company S. That means 75,000 at the reporting date. At the acquisition date is the 30,000. That means 45,000 is the post acquisition profit. 45,000 is the post acquisition profit, and the company C, 10,000 at the acquisition date, and the reporting date it is 35,000. That means 25,000 is the post acquisition profit, right? Post acquisition profit. So therefore, you need to use the effective holding percentages, and you need to separate within the consolidation return earnings and the NCI. So effective holding would be 75-25 for the S, and for C 62.5 to 37.5. So out of 45,000, you need to get the 75,000, 25,000 here. 25,000 would be 11,250, right? 11,250, and here out of 45,000, if we deducted 11,250, I think 33,750, right? Again, right? 25,000, out of 25,000, you need to get 37.5 to NCI and 62.5 to group return earnings, right? So it should be, when it's coming to this, 900,375, right? And also when it's coming to the group return earnings, right? Group return earnings out of 25,000, 62.5 means I think 15,625. Right. So this is it. Right. This is it. So then you can prepare the statement of financial position, consolidation statement of financial position by using these values, right? So these are the final balances, right? So this is how you are approaching the mixed group, right? Only the adjustment, the same adjustment is there. Only you need to look at the direct purchase consideration, right? Direct purchase consideration. There will be indirect and direct purchase consideration. For the indirect one, you need to do the indirect holding adjustment, right? You need to do the indirect holding adjustment, right? So that's all. Any questions? All clear? Okay, I hope all clear, right? So if you have any questions, you can reach me. So then let's wind up the session. So before winding up the session, I will put the QR code again, right? So I think I have done something. I actually refresh your knowledge, right? So only when it comes to the complex consolidation, only thing is that adjustment, right? So other things are goes according to the basic consolidation we already learned, right? So this is kind of an extension for the basic consolidation, right? Right? Don't make this as a very big deal. It is not a big deal. This is only a kind of extension for the basic consolidation. Right? Okay. So I'll put the QR code to scan. So there's a question. So when comparing to the vertical group structure, only difference is the calculation of effective rate and the purchase consideration. So when you are comparing the vertical group structure, only difference is the calculation of effective rate and the purchase consideration. Yeah. That's correct. Yeah. Okay. So I will put the QR code. So if you have any questions when you are scanning the QR code, you can raise, right? So the QR will be available for only 3 minutes, right? So within that 3 minutes, if you have any questions regarding the things which we have discussed, not about the QR code, things which we have discussed, you can ask. Okay, so it seems you don't have any question. So let's, yeah, can't scan. So I think I need to adjust the settings. Okay, now is it fine? Now you can scan, right? Yes, can scan, right? Okay. Okay, then. So let's wind up the session. So thank you very much for joining. So if you have any kind of a question regarding this complex group, right, you can raise, right? Thank you very much for joining. So have a good day and good night. Right, I will make available the QR code for next 2 minutes and then I will end the meeting. Right. So thank you again. Good night.